Hey everyone, I'm giving away a free Nightmare Narrations t-shirt on Halloween to 5 random commenters, and all you need to do to enter is like, and then comment on any video on this channel. Each comment will get you an additional entry into the drawing. In particular, I'd like to know your favorite aspects of the story, which character resonates the most with you and why, and whatever feedback, positive or negative, you'd like to give me. I do truly appreciate your feedback, and will take these to heart as I bring more narrations to you. And with that, let's start the story. I just found out why the kids in my town are brutally killing their parents. Part 4. Welcome to Child Trademark. Continued. One hour, 43 minutes, 17 seconds, until separation, which they ignored. Again, another death sentence staring them right in the face of whatever separation meant, and they didn't even glance at it. These kids looked happy, almost at peace. And it didn't make sense to me why they were all sitting there waiting to die with giant grins on their faces until my eyes found the corner of the room and a familiar face. Slouched on a beanbag, his legs propped up on a table piled with comic books, was Finn Novak. He looked exactly as he had the last time I saw him, sporting a shorter haircut and sandy-colored hair sticking in every direction. Still wearing Ray-Bans, which clashed with the light purple of the so-called uniform he was wearing. The sheriff's son was idly turning the pages of a book, but it wasn't the boy who automatically stuck out to me. It was the glint of metal attached to his right ear. It was bigger than a piercing, but from that angle, I couldn't see what it was. Finn Novak didn't seem like the type to get spontaneous piercings. Still, though, the relief that filled me at seeing Finn alive was enough to send me stumbling forwards before I could stop myself. When I situated myself in front of him, he glanced up, and the corners of his lips twitched into an unexpected smile. The last time I saw him, the boy was hysterically slamming his head into the bars of his cell. The manic contortion in his features was gone, replaced by a much more relaxed demeanor. Too relaxed. The boy looked high. He put his book down when I plunked into a beanbag in front of him. Mara, nodding at me, he leaned his chin on his fist. The eye patch suits you. He inclined his head. You're here because you just turned 18 and received the bombshell on your birthday eve that you are nothing but a plastic doll modeled to be the perfect daughter to replace this town's lack of children. So you clawed out your eyes and killed your mom and dad. The boy leaned back on his beanbag, studying me through the shades. Happy 18th birthday, by the way. He saluted me with 2 fingers, a teasing smile pricking on his lips. I'm glad you didn't explode. I regretted telling him my fake mom's idea of a hilarious yearly birthday greeting. Finn, I managed to get out. Yeah. How can you see me? The boy straightened up, bringing his knees to his chest. Oh, that. He pointed to the device glued to his ear. Well, this. But it's not just helping me see. Finn nodded around the room. Look around. Notice anything? When I followed his pointer finger, I did. This strange earpiece was apparently a universal accessory. I couldn't help myself, kneeling in front of Finn and prodding the thing. It was solid metal, emitting an eerie blue light. Finn tapped the thing with a smile. Don't be fooled, Mara. It can give me my sight, sure, but it's also a leash. His lips split into that maniacal grin from his father's cell. You're wondering why I'm not a raging psycho right now. Well, that's this thing. He tapped it again. Think of it like being high or in permanent euphoria. When I got it fitted, I was told it's supposed to inject happy drugs into our brains to send us to La La Land. So we just accept our separation. He turned, pointing at a girl trying to perfect a cartwheel. Lissa ripped a guard's head off a few days ago. And Alex, he pointed to a guy struggling with a Rubik's Cube. Alex broke some guy's necks. So yeah, call it being comfortably sedated. Finn surprised me with a laugh. And guess what? It actually worked. He let out a noise which I would expect from Noah, tipping his head back and grinning at the ceiling. I could sense his spinning head and foggy thoughts keeping him hostage, burning away logic and the desperation to escape. These kids were staring at a death clock counting down to their demise, and they weren't even allowed to be scared. Immediately, I knew he was going to be zero help. But if I was going to get out of there, I couldn't leave him, even if his brain was slowly rotting under the control of those announcements and the thing attached to his ear. I'm being slowed down, Finn chuckled, abruptly pointing to a pile of board games. Do you want to play Monopoly? He lunged for the box before I could reply, his whole body vibrating with elation. Finn, I grabbed his shoulders and lowered him back onto his beanbag. I'm going to get you out of here. The sheriff's son leaned back into the beanbag with a sigh. I glimpsed the device attached to his ear, flashing a deeper blue. His smile faded. Have fun with that, Nancy Drew, but I think I'm going to stay here and read, awaiting my inevitable demise. My brother is dead. I had never understood Finn's liking for my brother. They had met once when Finn came over to awkwardly hand my mom mail, which had ended up in his mailbox. I remember standing on top of the stairs watching the two of them, my twin and Finn, engage in awkward conversation. I thought it was a crush on Finn's side, but then my brother, who was usually a snarky piece of shit, was suddenly incapable of words. It was almost like the two knew each other, but also didn't. I noticed Finn's earpiece flash a deep red before flickering back to blue, and the boy's head jerked slightly, his trance-like smile fading, humanity coming back to fruition. What? He shook his head, seemingly snapping out of it. Finn leaned forward, his voice choking up. I could see the pain in his expression, which was being torn away by the thing stuck to his ear. It flashed orange, and Finn was trembling. It turned red and his teeth were gritted before back to blue, and the boy's body relaxed. It looked like he wanted to say something, his hands balling into fists. His head jerked, and the device turned a multitude of colors before he went rigid. Sorry. It's okay. How did it? His head jolted again, this time violently backwards, but the boy didn't even notice. Happen. Did you like him? I couldn't help asking. Finn shrugged. This time the device turned green, and a smile took over his lips. Whatever emotion the thing was combating, it was strong. I don't. No, he said. I feel like I've met him before, but as far as I know, I've only been alive for a year. I managed to get mine out, I said, heaving out a breath. He was right in front of me trying to do the same, and then he was just gone. I could see it in my head again, a vivid splash of red coating my eyes and warmth. Mom murdered him, Finn. I stood up, grasping hold of him and yanking him to his feet. I need to get back to my sister. Mom told me I have a bio mother, that she's looking for me, that she never stopped looking for me. I whispered, don't you want that? To find your real mom and dad and run away from here? I gestured to the countdown. Or stay around to find out what separation means? Well, yeah, obviously. Finn winced, and his device flashed blue again. I figured it was mediating his emotions too, forcing him into a permanently relaxed state. But Finn was fighting it, momentarily managing to grasp hold of himself, his voice hardening before the thing turned his voice back into a drugged-up giggle. I'd love to get the heck out of here, but this thing is more than a leash. It stops me from breaking the rules. I can't follow you. I'll get an electric shock. You've already set it off. Yeah. Swearing, breaking rules, and arguing or raising our voices, Finn sighed. I called Alex a fucking idiot. Then we'll find a way to pull it off. It can't just be pulled off. Finn shook his head. Did you listen to that presentation? If I find a good pair of pliers, yes, I will be able to pull it off. Oh yeah. The sheriff's son's lip quirked. What happens if I explode? I rolled my good eye. You can tell me I told you so, in the great beyond. Finn looked skeptical, but followed me toward the door. I had deja vu of breaking into his dad's office. Just like before, I motioned for him to distract the guard before we made a run for it. He was right. When we passed over the threshold, me keeping a tight hold of his wrist, he hissed out, pulling at the device. When I twisted around to look at him, the boy sent me a sickly smile. I'm fine, he said. It's not as bad as I thought. I nodded, starting towards the first exit, the fire door. Voices, however, sent me stumbling back, pinning myself and Finn to the wall. Keeping myself and him still, I swung my head around. Are we all finished here? A youngish woman came around the corner, followed by a man in a pinstripe suit and a smaller figure. It was a boy, 15 or maybe 16. His head was bowed, eyes on the ground as he dragged his feet. It was when he looked up suddenly, his gaze empty, a childlike smile on his face, when something sour crawled its way up my throat. I didn't recognize the short brown hair tucked under the beanie or the freckles on his cheeks, but from the facial structure alone, I could see 17 years worth of smug smirks and teasing laughter. I was staring at a much younger version of him, which I knew well. At 15 years old, he had been the world's worst brother, never letting me play on the game's console, throwing food at me at the table, and going through the angsty teen phase where he slammed his door on my face when I tried to enter his room. I was looking at my twin brother. The man in the pinstripe suit nodded, stepping into view while Freddy continued walking. His steps slightly stumbled. When he looked up, there was no trace of my brother in his eyes. It was like looking at a newborn baby. His eyes were full of confusion and childlike wonder, occasionally staring down at his hands. We are indeed, Mrs. Cassidy. I could see the strain and the contortions of his face. We managed to cut out the unfortunate memories which caused this model to react in such an interesting manner. He let out a fake laugh, and Freddy lifted his head, startled by the noise. When my brother wandered into a classroom door, the man yanked him back into a walk. I can assure you he has been evaluated fully, and any and every trace of Freddy's second-generation memories have been removed, as well as those of the original. He chuckled. Honestly, Mrs. Cassidy, I had no idea they even existed. Here at Child Trademark, we want you to leave happy, and I can say with confidence that Freddy is ready to be taken home. All we need is some last-minute paperwork, as well as a signed NDA. And you're free to take your new child home. The man's words stung. Freddy was nothing to him but produce he was marketing and selling to this woman. Didn't you say your brother was dead? Finn whispered over my shoulder. He is. Well, he looks pretty fucking alive to me. Finn paused. And younger? I shushed him. He better be ready. The woman was frowning at my brother, a crease between her brows. I've been waiting months. How long does he last? Her lip curled. Do you know how long I have waited to have a baby as a barren woman in a cursed town? Pinstripe nodded. Just like others, our Freddy model lasts a year from activation. And there's only one of him right now, the woman inquired. Yes, if various models were to be activated at the same time, that would pose a significant problem. To avoid complications with the Neuralink, we sell a model a year. Unfortunately, the 17-year-old model was scrapped due to a fault with programming. As you saw with the model's behavior earlier, sometimes the Neuralink can be disrupted and the model will experience what we call a static link. It is nothing to worry about, though we have decided to recall the 17-year-old Freddy's to make sure it is just an isolated case. Finn's sharp intake of breath was enough for me to know that the Freddy who had blown up was causing other versions to behave erratically. I wondered if this had anything to do with the version my mom had. Pinstripe was clearly sugarcoating it. But rest assured, 15 is a great age, and using the controls inside, you can implant any memories you would like. Freddy will remember a whole childhood with you, and of course, it will be like having your very own son. He cleared his throat. If you have ever lost a child, feel free to replicate any given memory. Freddy will remember it as his own. I felt sick. The way this man was talking was like he was trying to sell a phone. But this was my brother. When they arrived at the door, the man beamed. Thank you again, Mrs. Cassidy. He smiled proudly at my twin. I hope you like your third-generation parents. The boy finally lifted his head, peering through thick strands of dark hair. He said in a mumble, playing with his hands. Freddy cocked his head. But where are my sisters? He twisted around, his eyes wide. I was just with them, and now they're gone. My brother blinked rapidly, and my chest tightened. Do you know where my sisters have gone? Something twisted in my gut. I had half a mind to scream at him, but I kept my mouth clamped shut. The man laughed nervously. No, you do not have any sisters. Please say hello to your mother, Freddy. Oh no, Finn murmured. What? I don't know. I'm not sensing good vibes from your freshly grown brother. Don't say that. It's true. Oh, my brother's voice sent me twisting back around. It was him. It was his voice, his face. Everything about him was real and in front of me. So, why did I feel so sick? Why did my chest ache at the thought of wrapping my arms around him and finally admitting that I was too slow to carve the thing out of his eye? My twin was standing there, and I could still feel pieces of him stuck between my fingernails. It was unnatural and wrong and agonizing. A cruel trick, but it was also exactly what I hoped for. I was already taking slow steps forward in a daze, when Finn's fingers wrapped around the material of my jacket, yanking me back just in time for Freddy to smile at his new mother, reaching out and wrapping his fingers around her neck. When she cried out, his lips twitched into a smile I finally knew. Hello, Mom. Thank you for the birthday card. It was so thoughtful, he said. Everything seemed to go in slow motion. With a jerk of his wrist, the woman was pressed up against the wall, and his fingers were pulverizing her throat. Her face was going red and then blue, then bruised purple, blood vessels exploding. There was no spite or anger or pain in his eyes. Freddy just looked confused. Cocking his head, he squeezed tighter before plunging his fist into her stomach and pulling out her insides before letting her corpse drop to the ground, smeared scarlet stemming across clinical white. From Finn's expression, I knew I was right. This monster was my real brother, the one I lost. Standing with the woman's slithering intestines in his hands, Freddy turned to Pinstripe. When my twin stepped towards him, he managed to pull out his talkie before Freddy snatched it off of him and dropped it onto the ground, stomping on it. I was with my sisters, he said, his tone hardening. And then it all went dark. When I woke up, I was here. My brother ran a hand through his hair, wincing. There's something important I need to tell them, he grimaced. But I can't remember what I was doing. I can't remember my name or their names. My twin stumbled toward the man before blue fluid frothed in his mouth, splashing onto the tiles. The stuff dripped from his nose and ears, streaked pink and red. He didn't seem fazed by it. Frantic eyes scanning for an exit. I watched him take 2 steps back before a guard came out of nowhere, grabbed him, and threw him to the ground. When his head hit marble, I was already lunging forward to help him. But Finn Novak's fingers were already gripping the back of my shirt and pulling me back when alarms started to screech, and the hallway was filled with red light. That's my brother. Finn kept a hold of me, dragging me back down the hallway. His earpiece was going crazy, flashing an angry red. I figured that meant he finally had some control back. That is obviously not your fucking, brother. Another voice took me by surprise, this one growing closer. It sounded like this person was being dragged. What do you mean he got away? This time, Finn came to an abrupt stop, his earpiece flashing purple. I had never seen it flash that color before. His hand went to the device, suddenly, and I glimpsed desperation in his expression to claw it off. The familiar voice continued in what sounded like a struggle. I want you to find him. Do you understand how much shit you will be in if this gets out? That I unwillingly donated my body to a cursed town? It's bad enough that you actually had the guts to kidnap the son of... Get the fuck off me. No, I want to speak to my father right now. You can't do this. You can't keep me here. I have rights. I want that thing put down. When the yell morphed into a muffled cry, the sheriff's son turned to me, his lips twisted in a silent cry. His earpiece was flashing like crazy, an all too familiar beeping sound filling my ears, and a red light flashed in my face, reflecting that same haunting countdown. 59, 58, 57. Is that me? To be continued.